goes out and has premarital sex, but just because like she's a girl, they can now tell because she got pregnant.
Yeah, her argument was this is discrimination, and she's saying it's discrimination because, let's be honest, I mean, you're not going to do this to a guy. A guy's not going to show. Since she is actually going to show, then she's doing something and being punished for it. If the guy does the exact same thing, is it likely that he's going to be punished?
No.
No, it's really, really not. What was the Catholic school's argument? Anybody?
That it was under a contract that she had signed.
She signed a specific contract and she needed to uphold this, and since she didn't, you know, you want to go do stuff like that, go teach in the public schools.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't exactly tell her that way, but that's basically the gist of it. The equality part of it, well, when you think about it, the parents had a role in this too, because they paid for Catholic education, which is reading, writing, arithmetic, but also Catholic values. And you could make an argument that if they're seeing this, they're not getting Catholic values, so there was a debate there as well. What ultimately happened? What was the ruling? Did she get her job back, or was she fired? Fired. Why?
Because she was violating the contract law.
She was violating the contract. How did the court get around the idea? How did the court get around the idea that she was not being discriminated against? Go ahead.
I think you said that every time you have sex, someone doesn't get pregnant, so it's ruled out.
That's what the court said. They said the expectation here is that, okay, men are having sex and they're doing something. Well, women don't always get pregnant when they have sex, so it's not like this is actually discrimination. Both men and women are getting away with this kind of a thing. It's equal. The other piece was she actually kind of messed up when she told. Had she not told, that might have been a little bit different, but she told, and let's be honest, the man, if he doesn't tell, how can you compare her and him? When she told, she's got to be fired. If they don't know about him, it's not discrimination if they don't fire.
Everyone will see that she's pregnant.
Yeah, but she could also have lied about getting married. She could have put pictures up. I mean, there's so many things that she could have done. I think she did the right thing ultimately, but the school did the right thing based on that contract too. Catholic school teacher. What was Heartbreak's Revenge? This was another contract case. Anybody?
No, it's when the husband asked the kid about the Blockbuster video.
Yeah, that's right, about the Blockbuster video card. And what had Mommy been doing?
I don't know, she was an affair.
Yeah, Mommy said that she was going to a conference with, I think it was the 5-year-old son, and it turns out that they found a Blockbuster card somewhere completely different. And when they found the Blockbuster card, it was apparent that she was lying. Turns out she was having an extramarital affair. How does alienation of affection work in the fine state of North Carolina?
All three of them.
You can sue.
You can sue the guy who was having the affair with.
Okay, you can sue the person that she was having the affair with. When you think about it, if your spouse has an affair and you sue your spouse, well, you're going to do that in divorce anyway. But the idea is that you can sue the person that's having the affair with your spouse because they effectively stole your love by having this extramarital affair. It's protecting, they're breaking the contract, so you're trying to protect the contract. Now, with this in mind, how much money can you get from this? Okay, a lot's a start, but don't write that on the exam. Anybody remember what he got?
Like a couple million or something?
It was a little bit more than 100,000. The biggest judgment was over $2 million in North Carolina. That's what it was. And if you remember with this, again, there's a number of factors to it. There are a number of states that deal with this law, if you remember. Maryland was not one of them. But if you are in Maryland and you hook up with a married person from North Carolina, the statute kicks in. If you are in Maryland and you go to North Carolina and hook up with somebody there, the statute kicks in. Or if it's one of those 7 or 8 states that have this law still on the books, Utah, Hawaii, I think Virginia might have been one of them, Mississippi, I'm pretty sure was one of them. The idea is that even if you're not in the state, if you've got a connection with somebody that is, you can actually get sued for violation of contract law. So keep that in mind. House Advances bill was talking about the nonviolent felonies, right? How did that work?
That they were pardoned.
They were pardoned?
They were pardoned if like 17 and 18-year-olds were pardoned of a nonviolent crime.
Yeah.
So that they could have better futures.
Okay, 17 or 18-year-olds would be pardoned. Expunged, yes, Pilar says. They're expunging their records. Basically what they're saying, and think about this, what were the things that you lose? If you got convicted of a nonviolent felony, what are the things that you lose the ability to do?
Get a job.
Okay, Voting maybe, but that really wasn't the big purpose behind the article. What's that?
Financial aid,
Financial aid to go to college is one of them. Anything else?
like jobs.
Jobs, because you're going to have to check that box that says I was convicted of a felony, and in fact a lot of employers won't. Brian, you said the military. The military is another good example. You can't get a job, you go to school. If you can't go to school, you join the military. If you can't join the military or any of these other two things, what's left? More crime. And the idea is that if we expunge their record, then they're going to have a clean start. Everybody makes mistakes sometimes. Let's not punish them forever. North Carolina. How many states actually have these expunging laws?
Big 7? No.
7 states have the expunging laws.
38.
38. We're just yelling out numbers, higher or lower.
27?
49 states
Wow.
have laws that allow you to forgive a nonviolent felony, and the one state that didn't is actually North Carolina. Okay, the other thing. What are some examples of nonviolent felonies?
Like drugs or.
Bringing a gun to school.
Bringing a gun to on public ground. Yeah, bringing a gun to the public schools. Gosh, what else? Breaking and entering where nobody, it's just breaking and entering into an empty place. Home invasion was another one. There were several that the article mentioned. Focus on the facts of the article and be able to tell me the story as you go through this. Because some of these article questions that we spend enough amount of time on, they're going to turn into short answers. Some of them are going to turn into tricky multiple choices. So somebody is going to need their record expunged on the exam. I'm just saying. Okay. Don't worry about jobless benefits. Texas cheerleaders. I know we spent time on that one. What was Texas cheerleaders?
They
Yeah.
they made a banner that had I think one of the like a scripture from the Bible on it, and they didn't. Like some people, I guess, were offended by that, or they thought people would be offended by that.
I think the specific.
Were those the rappers? Were they candy rappers?
No. This
Okay,
that's the scenario.
No,
Don't worry
never
about the
mind,
scenario.
never
God,
mind,
I've
sorry.
seen enough of that
Sorry
this
about
week. Okay. The Texas cheerleaders is actually dealing with the banner that said, "If God is with us, then who can be against us?" And if you remember, what they did is they also would put scriptures around the outside of the field on the fence. So, the team would run out on the field, that thing would get ripped up, but then you could still see the different scriptures. Was it legal for them to do? What was the cheerleaders' argument?
They paid for it.
We paid for it. We used our time and energy. Nobody complained about it. You know what? This is our free exercise. What was the school's concern?
So they were pushing their beliefs on all the students.
Pushing religious beliefs. You're at a school function. You're in a school uniform. How can you not be representing the school? Ultimately, the school made them stop. The cheerleaders sued, and then who won? The
Cheerleaders.
cheerleaders actually came back and won on this, and even Facebook was very much in favor of them based on the feedback that they had gotten, but it's still pending appeal. I'm sure they're going to make a final decision before next football season, but they haven't given us that one now. But as of right now, it's legal to do this. Going back to the terms, Chapter 2, this is a big one. Chapter 2, and it's pretty straightforward. Anything that you want to have questions about from Chapter 2? Go ahead, Ross.
Amendment fractions.
Amendment fractions. We talked about a lot of fractions over the course of things. Now we'll start with the amendment fractions. What is it that is required to propose a constitutional amendment? What is it required to ratify a constitutional amendment?
2/3 vote.
2/3 vote of?
Congress. States.
2/3 vote of the Congress to propose. And what is the fraction to ratify?
2/3.
Wow, I got like 5 fractions there and none of them are right.
It's 3/5.
Oh, 9/13.
3/5, 3/5.
Oh, yeah.
3/4 is what it says, and it's actually straight from the chapter. There's a little thing in there that deals with this. It basically says 2/3 to propose, 3/4 to ratify. What else did 2/3 do that we talked about so far? Very briefly, but we talked about it.
Override.
2/3 overrides, 2/3 vote of the House and the Senate overrides a presidential veto. What is 3/5?
Is that the? I mean,
Well,
are
yeah,
you talking about the 3/5?
What is the 3/5? Yeah.
And a 3/5 compromise,
Yes.
which was basically
Gotta go fast.
Someone help me here.
Every 3
Is that when-
9 equals 1 person or something.
Yes. Oh, every slave equals 3/5 of a regular human being because
Every slave equals, that's the
Well,
most
yeah.
wordy way I've ever heard it. 5 slaves equals 3 people, or a slave equals 3/5 of a person for what?
for voting purposes.
Voting purposes, for representation and
Taxation.
taxation purposes. The northern states wanted the slaves to count as a full person for taxation, so the slaves would be, or the southern states would be taxed higher, but they didn't want them to count for representation. The southern states wanted them to count as a full person for representation, but not at all for taxation, because they didn't want to have to pay. Ultimately, it was 3/5 for both. What was 9/13?
How many states?
How many
do you need?
Uh,
How many states you needed? Okay, that's a start.
The original colonies, you had to have 9 of the 13 original colonies to vote for a bill to pass it.
What'd you say? Speak up.
Or-
9/13 is to ratify the
Ratify.
Constitution. But to go back to
yeah.
Stephen's question, what was the fraction that you needed in order to pass a bill under the Articles of Confederation?
all of them.
13 out of 13. It had to be unanimous. Keep in mind these fractions as you're looking forward. We did not talk much about War Powers Resolution, so scratch that one. We did not talk about divided government, so scratch that one. Yes.
What happened in 1808?
What was the 1808 Compromise? There were 2 parts of the Constitution, the original Constitution, that dealt with slavery. One was 3/5, and the other one was 1808. We just talked about 3/5. What was the 1808 Compromise?
You guys stopped slavery.
What's that?
The importing slaves, right?
1808 dealt with the ending of the international slave trade. And the idea is that we're going to give you 20 years to end the slave trade so that you're not dependent upon it anymore. Did it work?
No, they opened it up for 20 years, and instead of exporting all their slaves, they brought in as many as they
They
could.
brought in
until-
more slaves. It accelerated slavery worse than anything. And then in 1808, they had enough so that they began to breed and they would never use the international slave trade again. So the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Well, the slave trade may have been paved with good intentions, this 1808 part, but in fact, it was the exact opposite. What other questions have you got?
New Jersey plan?
What was the difference between the New Jersey and the Virginia plan? Go ahead.
The New Jersey plan was because their state was smaller, right?
Yeah.
What happened?
So what kind of representation did they want? New Jersey plan dealt with the small states.
To have enough votes in the House.
Okay, what did you say it, Bakar?
Same votes as
Equal representation.
They basically said
Yep.
that they wanted equal representation. The thought was that if all states are basically supposed to be equal, then we should have equal representation. And it should not matter how big we are, how many people we are, how much money we have. It shouldn't matter about any of this. Now, it never failed, though. It seems like in all of the classes, somebody would blurt out size matters, which takes us to the Virginia plan. And what was the deal with the Virginia plan?
They wanted the population to reflect representation.
They did. So the more population you have,
More representation.
the more representation you would have. How did they compromise between Virginia and New Jersey?
The Delaware plan, right? Or
The
Connecticut.
Delaware plan.
I have no idea.
The what? The Connecticut plan. Yes, Vakar, go ahead. What did they do in the Connecticut, the Delaware plan? What did you do? Go ahead. Two different houses.
One was for equal representation.
One was for equal representation. So the New Jersey plan became which house?
The Senate.
The Senate. And the Virginia plan became? Which is based on population.
Population size.
And I had shown you the difference between California and Wyoming, how in the Senate it's 2-2, but in the House it's like 50-something to 1, because in the House it's more based on population. And you could argue California's really getting screwed. They go from 53 to 1 to 2 to 2 or whatever it is, but the fact is that that's the way that they wanted it. So that was their compromise, the Connecticut Compromise. Anything else from this chapter?
Article 4? Is that Article 4 or that
Article
Article 6?
6. Article 4 is full faith and credit. So that's fine. And I think y'all are good with full faith and credit?
Oh yeah.
If a state has if you get a legally binding document from a state, then other states are going to be required to respect, to honor that legally binding document. And we had talked about this within the context of driver's license, if you remember. We had talked about this within the context of criminal charges, if you're a fugitive from justice kind of a thing. We talked about this within the context of marriage, although not in the context of gay marriage. Article 6 had two parts. What were the two parts from Article 6? One of them came from the religion scenario, although many of you didn't use that one. And then one of them had something completely unrelated with religion. Any thoughts?